I'm Donna Bush with your CIG-TV News Brief on this Friday. We now take you through the visit by the Right Honourable Amanda Milling, Minister for the UK Overseas Territories, who arrived in the Cayman Islands on Wednesday. On Thursday afternoon, she toured various places, including the Field Hospital, located at the Family Life Centre. The Field Hospital project was coordinated by the National Emergency Operations Centre in mid-2020 and involved a collaboration across the government, private sector and charity sector to deliver bed capacity for the Health Services Authority. Now, the facility would be used in the event that the existing hospital capacity became insufficient during the COVID-19 pandemic. The facility is currently set up for 80 beds with capacity to expand to 100 beds. On the tour with Minister Milling were His Excellency the Governor, senior health officials, and Minister for Health and Wellness, the Honourable Sabrina Turner, who addressed the uniqueness of the Cayman Islands' response to the pandemic.
The presentations that was made to Cabinet as well, with our high admission rate, is that we were a bit more cautious, and in some jurisdictions who would have just been seen as an outpatient, we were actually admitting. So again, what was unique about this jurisdiction in comparison to some other jurisdictions, a lot of them would have just gone home with some analgesics, fever, febrile medication, but we were actually admitting them out of abundance of caution. So that's another unique thing with our jurisdiction as well.
Again, the Field Hospital was set up to support the Cayman Islands' COVID-19 preparedness strategy. Well, from the Field Hospital, the tour continued at the Track and Trace Centre, where staff monitor and manage contact with residents who have questions and answers on various issues, including contact tracing, isolation, and quarantine.
So it's a mix of clinical and admin. So the clinical staff are training a lot of the admin, the persons who haven't worked in healthcare before, to do some of the contact tracing. Many of our persons here have done, there was a course on Coursera on contact tracing that everybody encouraged everybody to do. Over here is all contact tracing. In that corner we manage the LFTs and the travelers. So that's overseen by one public health nurse. And our public health nurses here would be the equivalent of the health visitor with disease control, with communicable disease control on top of it. So they're triple certified bachelor's degree nurses.
The Overseas Minister shared her thoughts on the work that was being done in the Cayman Islands from a public health perspective as it relates to COVID-19.
I know that we've had this debate in the UK. I remember earlier in the year when there was, the transmission rate was going, with Omicron was going like that. And there was this fear that actually so many people would end up in isolation. How would then public services cope? And so it's all. I totally understand that tension that you have, and we've continually had to change and tweak our response according to kind of our understanding of the virus, the new variant, and therefore kind of looked at, well, actually, what can we do in terms of changing the quarantine time on it? Because I understand it's not easy. But I have to say, you're all doing absolute tremendous work.
Minister Milling was then given a tour of the Genomics Sequencing Lab at the Health Services Authority, where she learned how PCR tests are carried out.
When we talk about loading them, we just mean that we put the samples, the purified samples, into plates like this, and they then go onto the instrument here, and these heating blocks that they sit in, they heat up the sample, and they go through cycles of heating and cooling, and that amplifies the material in each of these sealed wells. And it gets to a certain point where there's enough amplification that happens that it shows fluorescence on the screen. So what you would see here is an output of the run that was done, and that can, by interpreting this, we can say if you're positive or negative or all in between, really.
On Thursday afternoon, Minister Milling was at the Owen Roberts Airport when the latest delivery of the Pfizer-BioNTech COVID-19 vaccines arrived on board British Airways. Early on Friday, members of the Coast Guard had the chance to meet with the minister to explain some of the threats faced by the law enforcement agency.
The threats are basically from the north of the island. We have fishing vessels that have gone further north to make offshore transfers, and that are bringing primarily cocaine back to the island. And from the south, we have the fishing vessels again with the square groupers, transfers at sea, and then from Jamaica we have primarily those threats. So we're pulled in all directions. Currently our staff right now is 25 persons. When Mr. Bostock did his evaluation, his assessment, ideally we should be at 45, so we're working towards that number, working within government constrained budgets and everything else.
This is the minister's first visit to an overseas territory since her appointment on September 15th last year. She chose the Cayman Islands for her first visit to the overseas territories. On Saturday, she will travel to Little Cayman. We invite you to join us next week when we bring you highlights of Friday afternoon and a weekend visit to the sister islands. Taking a look now at our forecast, we can expect partly cloudy skies with a 20% chance of showers tonight. Temps will fall to the low 70s. Seas will be smooth with wave heights of less than 2 feet. Tomorrow, there is a 60% chance of thunderstorms, or thunder showers rather. Small craft operators should exercise caution on the open waters. The outlook is for fresh northerly winds and moderate to rough seas from Saturday morning as a cold front moves over the Cayman Islands area. Fresh winds and rough seas are expected to continue through Monday night. Now, the synopsis calls for light winds and seas, which are expected over the Cayman area for the next 24 hours as a cold front moves over the extreme northwest Caribbean. Satellite images show a few low-level clouds over the Cayman Islands area that are moving towards the southwest. Now, remember, you can find the latest unexpected local weather conditions online at weather.gov.ky. And this brings us to the end of today's news brief for this Friday and the week here on CIG Television. I'm Donna Bush. Thanks for joining us. Have a great weekend.
Seek the latest, accurate information on COVID-19 only from official sources at gov.ky/coronavirus.